Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So in today's video, we're gonna be working on the IS300. It's been a while since I've done a project on the IS300, but today I'm gonna be installing these bumper lifters. They're generic Mac lifters that I got on eBay. I think you can get them on Amazon too for like 25 or 30 bucks, but they look exactly the same. They might even come from the same exact factory. So we'll go ahead, review that today and try to get it installed on this vehicle. So this is the front and rear kit, and after looking through it, it comes with some hardware that you may need to use. I believe on the rear you have to actually drill your own holes to mount these things to the side of the car. They come with these generic screws and bits here, but I probably have OEM hardware that's much better that I'll probably be using when I get back there. As far as all the parts go, they look exactly the same. They're made of stainless steel. The only thing I see that's probably different as far as quality versus the real Mac lifter ones is the edges. These edges look like they're pretty sharp. They didn't finish them or sand them down or do any of that or polish the edges to make them a little bit safer compared to the photos of the Mac lifters I've seen. So I'll go ahead, sand down some of this on my grinder just to get all the corners off. I just don't want to work with all these corners right here and accidentally cut myself in the future, not realizing that this is behind the bumper. So all those edges, I'm gonna just go ahead and clean that up. Overall, as far as the part itself and all the features, when I look at the photos of the Mac lifters, they look exactly the same as far as all the adjustments, all the bends and everything. Even those little arrows right there on the top that kind of catch the bumper edge, they all look exactly like the Mac lifters that I see online. But the big difference here is the cost. These things were like 30 bucks or $32 or something like that versus 130 bucks from Mac lifters. So definitely $100 savings for something that does exactly the same thing is something I would go for versus paying the premium for the name brand and the etching. The big difference I saw on theirs is some of these parts say Lexus on them and they have their own little logo stamped into it, where these are just generic stainless steel metal that's been bent. One of the tools I'm gonna be using today is this Vevor electric ratchet right here. This is something that I've been wanting for a long time and I finally got to be able to pick it up. This particular kit I got right here was about $62. Go ahead and check out the links down in the descriptions to Amazon, but for this particular one, it comes with 2 batteries, so you always have a spare one on the charger on hand in case it runs out of batteries. This is a 12-volt version, so it works really good with the rest of their 12-volt tools that they offer. The one reason why I like using this is it helps me get to hard to reach places where I don't want to sit there and turn the ratchet. I could just use the electric and go at it once I get down there, or I loosen the bolt. With the long head right here, it helps you get into those tight spaces where you need a little bit of reach. And with the big girthy handle, it lets you get some torque on it once you tighten it down. You can just wrench it manually at that point to tighten it down. The kit comes with a small extension and sockets from 10 millimeters all the way up to 17 millimeters. So it pretty much has you covered for all your needs as far as ratcheting and wrenching goes. This thing's gonna be a great addition to my tool collection, along with all my other tools that I have from Vevor. Vevor offers a bunch of tools for your shop and everything, and I use their transmission jack, I use one of their lifting things, and I've used their air system all around my garage where I have a previous video for. So if you need any of these tools, go ahead and check out the links down in the description. I've used these and I trust these tools around the shop, especially as a hobbyist and someone that does this before I go to bed when I'm working on my vehicles. Our Vevor ratchet made quick work of getting all those 10 millimeters under the bumper off. So the next thing we're gonna go ahead and do is get all the bolts off, get the clips off the top, and we'll pull this bumper right off. To remove the rest of the bumper is a couple of clips here on top, the center grill bolt right here, which is a little Phillips screw. Onto the side right here, we're just gonna pop out this clip from this fender liner, pull it back, and then access the little screw that keeps the side of it. On this one, a couple years ago, I had a video where I rigged just a little clip right there to keep this thing up, but you can see there is a gap here and it's starting to rust and corrode in there. So we'll go ahead and get that out and get these little generic Mac lifters up in here. One of the things you gotta be careful with when you take this bumper off, there's a little peg right here that keeps the bumper in place. You gotta be careful with that because sometimes you might break that trying to get it out, so you gotta watch that. We got everything loosened on the sides and everything, and all the clips off the top. Pretty much pop the two sides. Watch out for those two little pegs on the edge that might get caught if those things are still even alive on your bumper. On mine, I actually replaced them with brand new OEM ones, so I know that mine are perfectly good and intact, but yours are probably gone by now, especially this age of vehicle. But we'll go ahead, pop both sides, and then just pull the bumper right off. Peg is right up into there, right there. Go ahead, just pull it down, get it out of the way, and just pop it out. Make sure you pop your fog lights and your connectors and your side markers out. See on the IS300, there's really no bracket or anything that holds that bumper up. There's that one peg I mentioned there that I replaced with the brand new OEM one right there. And then the one screw back here, that's about it. But there's really not much bumper to really lift up. Most of the bumper sits on this rail right here and clips into these little brackets, which again, I replaced those all brand new with all OEM stuff a couple years ago. So what the Mac lifters or the generic ones, they basically mount to these two spots right here, and then they kind of create a little lip or bridge that you can push your bumper into, and then we get the metal bracket on the other side that gets into that and holds it and gives it reinforcement. Here's that little paper clip that I used a couple years ago to kind of rig my mount, and it's worked pretty well since then. It's kind of corroded right now, but you can see that piece is still there, but the overall original tab is all gone. Right here we've got the new replacement. It basically goes right into there, and it actually fits perfect. It's the right shape and everything. The only thing is we gotta basically go ahead and JB Weld epoxy this with some plastic bond JB Weld, and it goes right into there. From what I can tell, those sharp edges, they're not gonna be in harm's way as far as danger. Once you put it on, you can see it's actually on the side that you won't be touching. The closest that you'll probably be touching is this edge right here, which again, it's decent. I mean, it's not overly sharp. You could sand it down with a little bit of sanding paper just to clean it up a little bit so it doesn't cut you later. But other than that, these little corners that I was worried about, they're gonna be tucked inside there and away from everything. The key to actually making this all work is getting your epoxy perfectly into here and holding for at least 24 hours to cure before you put it all back together. This project is not something that you can rush because of the cure time. The set time on it is like 6 minutes or 8 minutes or something like that, and it takes an hour to really cure. But just to make sure, you want to make sure you keep it 24 hours with no pressure on it. Prior to that, you got to basically prep all this. I'm going to go ahead and grind it down with something just to give it a nice edge to have the epoxy bond to. Most people get lazy with that and they just wipe it down, but with the smooth surface of this, it won't hold in the long run. So you want to make sure you scuff it up nicely where your actual epoxy is going to have something to grab. So I took this little sanding block right here and just scraped it along there just to get it cleaned up so the edges are a little bit deburred and they won't be razor sharp in the future in case I cut myself on it for some reason. So one of the things I noticed is since we have these two guide holes on here, you can actually get a bolt and a nut and use that on both ends. This side will need a washer on top, and we can use those to kind of hold this in place when the epoxy is setting, so that way you have a nice clean and tight connection between the epoxy and the bumper. In addition, we'll put a clamp in the middle here just to hold it and make sure we get a nice squeeze out of that epoxy and it holds over the 24-hour period, I'm gonna let this thing set. As far as prep, what I'm gonna do first, I'm gonna actually get my drill mold and get one of my bits right here. I'm gonna go ahead and clean this edge on right here along there so I can actually put the epoxy. Once I clean it up, I'll go ahead and clean it with some acetone as well as alcohol just to make sure the surface is oil-free and contaminant-free for the epoxy. Quick little scuff right there, just enough to get it all cleaned up, give something to bite with. So once we clean it up with a little bit of acetone and alcohol, that should be pretty clean and a good surface for the new epoxy. One thing I'm gonna go over a little bit more is right there into that corner, because what I want is that corner to be scuffed up also, because once you squeeze out the epoxy and the excess goes in that corner, it will actually act as a holding mechanism right onto that corner versus just on the flat. We'll be using right here, JB Weld Plastic Bond. This thing is like $7 or $8 on Amazon or at Walmart. Go ahead and just pick up some of this and use it. This is the same stuff that Mac Lifters actually sells. They sell it for $15 on their site when you can pick this up locally for $7 or $8. See right there, we still got some wet alcohol, but it'll evaporate pretty quick. Nice and clean where we want to mount it. So we'll go ahead and bust open the epoxy. Here's the screw I'm going to use with the bigger washer to hold it on that end. On this back end, I tried an M6 10mm bolt, but it was a little bit too big, so I had to step down to a smaller one, like an 8mm one that fit better into the hole on this side right there. This hole will fit it, but that hole is a little bit too small, so I had to change it to a smaller one. But this one right here actually threaded right into there, but I'll still put a nut on it just to make sure it holds. First side I did, make sure you get in there, get the nice squeeze out of it, clamp on both ends with those screws, and then I just ended up putting the little clamps in the middle just for good measure so it holds. So I'm gonna let this set overnight, make sure this thing is nicely bonded before I mess with it again. The second side I did right here, this one is a little bit messier. I kind of messed up a little bit initially putting it on the metal side and I had to wipe it, but overall turned out decent. That front bracket is very easy to put on. We got the two 10mm that we just unbolt, line up the new bracket into there, and then tighten them back up, and hopefully it clips in and holds in place. If not, you have to take it apart, adjust it, and put it back together. So after looking at this kit and putting it on, I noticed something that's for this particular eBay version that's going to be an issue on my vehicle. You can see right here, it actually hangs over a little bit and it gets right here. So you can see my tire has already been wearing a hole here from the big 19-inch wheels I run on here. Even with my 18s, they were rubbing right here. And then right here, it goes over. So you actually have to trim this down. And I noticed the newer Mac lifters actually have this thing trimmed to a point on either side, like a V shape, to kind of clear this. Over here is a little bit tight. This version also really doesn't line up with the two holes 100% as far as getting them in. Like I got it here, but it's like kind of tucked there, and then I'm down here, so it wasn't square as far as lining up there. So that's definitely not a good thing. I'm gonna go ahead and just take this off since I have that little peg, which is an OEM guide, and then all the clips up front here that hold the bumper on. This thing should hold on just with the little JB Weld bracket that I put on, plus the screw that we're gonna use here. So I'm gonna go ahead and just go do that and just forego having the lifters on the side here, because I don't think I really need these. All right, so we were able to get everything back. This thing lines up nicely now, fits in there perfectly. Once you bolt it up, everything lines up. That factory peg right there really helps get that thing lined up and stays in there. The rest of this thing, make sure that that bottom clip under your headlights is good. If not, you want to replace those. They actually sell those as aftermarket items too, even though I've got these as OEM when I ordered this stuff. I think it's shared between other Toyota vehicles. That's why you can get it aftermarket, but it helps keep the bumper up and in place. That's really the main thing that keeps the bumper up, and then that screw on the side really does the rest of it. My rear bumper right here is not even being held on anything up here. It looks like when they rolled the fenders, the previous owner, they kind of messed this little spot up here and broke this thing, so it's got nothing holding it right there to the screw. I think the bolt or the 10mm is still there, but nothing's there, so it's just been hanging by itself right there all these years. To take it off, you have these two bolts right here that we want to take apart on the screws, and then underneath we're going to have a screw back here that we'll get off with a 10mm and a bunch of clips all the way around the bottom there. That's pretty much it on either side that we need to take this thing apart. All these clips right here, I believe these are OEM clips for the IS300. These things are still intact and holding, and they didn't break on me, which tells me that they're OEM, but these things were a pain in the ass to get out. They were very tight, but I was able to get them out and without breaking them. We've got these two that were holding the side on there. Those other two, that little piece of flap came off, and then you just basically just pull the bumper apart right now from here. Just pop it out, and it pops out from that spot that holds it right there. To get this thing out without taking the wheel apart, I had this little ratcheting tool right here. It's a little gear wrench that comes in useful in these tight spots, but I was able to get it off on that side. But yeah, this is how you do it, and then once you get it far enough, you just do it by hand. Oops, it looks like I screwed up something right here. It looks like this thing is something that broke off the bumper on top on these two spots, so it appears that it goes through and there's some 10mm or something that's holding it on the inside of this, so you actually have to unbolt. It looks like 4 of them, 2 over here and then 2 on this side. I don't know if I broke it on this side yet, but yeah, it looks like I yanked it and broke it, so we'll see if we can put it back on, and then I'll go ahead and pop this apart and see if there's screws behind here to get to it. Yeah, I thought it was gonna be easy to get this out, but it looks like once I look into here, this thing's got all the way down there, so I gotta pull damn near the whole freaking trunk apart just to take this panel off to see if I can access those screws behind here. So for the wagon here, pretty much had to take everything out, and then once I get in here, I see 3 little clips right here that I gotta pop out just to take this panel off. Thinking Toyota engineers, so they did give access to those holes right here. You can see right there, that's the 10mm. There's another one right here. Those are the 4 that hold this thing on, hopefully, and we can pull the bumper off. All right, here's where I screwed up right here. I broke those little tabs right here that go and hold this thing up. So I'll go ahead and plastic weld that back on. Hopefully it stays or holds good enough. I need to clean up all this crap. I've never taken this thing apart. But yeah, this is dumb as hell the way they did this. These things go into there, and they should just had compression fittings into here like every other bumper. So for the rear bumper lifters, this is a wagon, so they designed it a little bit different. So my wagon actually has this bracket back here that actually still works perfectly fine because my things are still working over here. If I were to use this, I would have to remove it and cut this thing in half to mount this thing right there and actually bolt it into it. So you have to actually drill new holes for it to get it to fit in there and just line it up. But I'm not going to be doing that since I don't have issues there. I just have issues right here. So I'm going to go ahead and just put that tab so it mounts. That's the only thing I'm going to use out of this kit Everything else here is still perfectly good for the wagon. Tab on the rear bumper is a little bit thicker, and it's a little bit harder to actually put that new piece on. If you put it on there, you're gonna have to stack a bunch of epoxy on here because you can see that gap that it creates right there. So you're gonna have to fill this thing up and really just get this thing jammed up into there, into that corner, and get it all filled up. So that's what we're gonna do here once I clean this thing up, just to make sure this thing holds. I went ahead and cleaned all this stuff up with some super clean just to get it all prepped so we could go ahead and epoxy weld and plastic weld those brackets that I broke off that bumper when I was taking it apart along the way. Fix the broken tabs, I went ahead, had to hold that thing because they kept on falling until it set, and then once it set, I actually put it on the ground, flipped this thing upside down on the ground, and then I put some more on there just to make sure we had enough epoxy in here to basically fill it up and let it kind of run out and set, so that way when we put this back on, it won't break off easily. That's the way I found to set this thing, is to basically keep the bumper upside down. I went ahead, got a nut and a bolt right here, and we're gonna basically just have to wedge it in there, line it up basically right in the middle, and then we're gonna have to fill in all this epoxy around here and just glob it up, and hopefully it holds. Able to pretty much fill this thing up, went up here, turned it up, and let it kind of drip into the gap. So we'll pretty much let that thing set overnight, and then we'll deal with it once it completely dries. These are completely dry now. After I did that, I had a little bit extra, so I epoxied the ones that weren't broken just to reinforce them a little bit, but everything is back to normal here. Hopefully this stuff is good and it's not brittle, and it holds over time. So I didn't want that bolt to set in there and get stuck in the epoxy, so I went ahead and removed it. The way I have it now, it's already set, it's not going anywhere, so it's just gonna cure in this position and just stay like this. I had these tabs dry overnight, nice and solid now, all cured and hard. Same with the tabs right here for the bumper. Seems pretty good. These are designed for plastic welding, so hopefully they got enough flex in them and they're not as brittle as normal JB Weld, but it's pretty much intact, nice and strong again, just as good as the factory ones over here. We get these clips back into here fine with all the new repairs, so everything looked good. I went ahead, put some new masking tape for the wire harness back here where it was falling apart, so everything's all back together now and cleaned up. But hopefully this thing all goes back in, and we know next time to make sure we unbolt this before we pull the bumper off. To line up the 4 holes back here to get that thing in, the bumper pretty much snaps in. This side I had it lined up, it snapped in right here perfectly. I'm gonna leave this thing hanging a little bit so I can reach it and access it under the plastic so we can get to that bolt. On this side, it still needs to go in a little bit more to clip in. So it needs to go clip in right into there so you can actually get it. It's a little bit off right now, and then once it does that, it clips in nicely with the factory plastic and gets over here. So right now I just gotta clear this little plastic piece right here so I can get to it. I think, well, actually you could tuck the plastic back right here, get the bolt in, and then pull it back around before you put the cover back on. So I was trying to access that screw right there, And the best way to do it is actually to take apart that little panel right here. It's 4 10mm screws. That's really the only way to access this hole and get behind here, so you could actually get a screwdriver or something to turn that thing. But once we get in there, you can do it, and then you can put that plastic piece back pretty easily. We got this thing back, everything's clipped in nicely. It's almost perfect on this side. Before it was bulging out and looking nasty, but now it's actually flush with this rolled fender that's already screwed up. The only problem I had was a little bit of spot right here where it didn't pop in, but I think it's more of the bumper being hit. This thing's been hit before, so it's a little bit damaged as far as the shape and all that. Over here, everything's perfect. Everything right here lines up. This thing lines up nicely, so these little fake Mac lifters really worked well back here for that little piece. And honestly, that piece you could probably cut it and make it yourself, but with it being part of that kit for like $27, you can't complain about that. Hey guys, thanks for watching all the way to the end of this video on doing my bumpers and fixing it with that generic Mac lifter bumper hanging kit. As you can see, I didn't use the kit to its full extent because I didn't really need it on my vehicle, but I hope I showed you guys a little bit about what this $28 kit is versus the $150 kit getting it from Mac lifters. It's essentially the same kit as far as functionality. You just got to do a little bit more modifications on the one that we got here to make it work, but for $120 savings, I think it's worth it if you just want to give us a try, and it's better than having your bumper hang off. Luckily on my car, I didn't have to do much. I hope you guys found just the process of taking the bumpers off and everything useful. If you guys found the video useful, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed to your channel, go ahead and subscribe to your channel. Turn on bell notifications to get notified every time I upload a video. For all these different projects, if I can do it, you guys can do it. I want to thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you guys next time.